go. Hi, everyone. I'm Edwin Rutch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and this is our Visioning Empathy Circle to talk about developing a retreat center at 1964 Canoas Road in Santa Barbara. I'll just give a little bit of a background about what we're doing here. My brother recently purchased, just several months ago, purchased this old seminary that is in the hills behind Santa Barbara, and he asked me to manage it. So we're in the process of starting the whole process, of managing the space. And we're starting off with these empathy circles to meet with community members and also for the larger empathy community, just to start sort of brainstorming ideas about how to use the place, how to set up an empathy-based retreat center. And I think we've done about 10 of these so far. And it's been really great for connecting with the community and just kind of getting the word out about this project. So with that said, we're going to be using the empathy circle practice, which I'll explain in a few minutes. But first, let's everyone just introduce yourself, your name, your location, and why you're interested in this visioning circle. And I'll just model that. I'm Edwin Rutch. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and for about the past 15 years, I've been working on creating a more empathic society with our Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. We do all kinds of different empathy building processes and practices, and you can see the website at cultureofempathy.com for more. And I'm like super jazzed about this opportunity to create an in-person physical retreat center. I mean, it's like an opportunity of a lifetime, so I'm pretty jazzed about it. So with that, Bill, do you want to introduce yourself and why you're interested in being here today?
Sure. My name is Bill Filler. I'm a retired special education teacher. I've been working with Edwin for about 5, going on 6 years right now at the Empathy Tent and Building a Culture of Empathy and the empathy trainings. Even before this purchase, it was sort of like I had this idea of trying to do something in person because of the pandemic. We'd been on Zoom, and so I'm really jazzed about it. And I see a training mixed with an experience of nature. So that's one of the things I'm jazzed about. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Dwayne?
Hi. My name is Dwayne Hearn. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, originally from Los Angeles, California. And I'm retired, excuse me, government worker. I got involved with the empathy movement through Edwin's group, through a message I received on LinkedIn. And I've been involved for about 1.5 years, and I'm an empathy circle facilitator. I've completed training, and my interest in participating in these conversations is to, explore new ideas for the retreat and share some of the ideas that I have. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. Will?
Hi, Will Swan. I've been a builder for 4 decades and for sustainability and green building projects, and wanted to see ideas of what visions were for community gardens. If there's going to be new buildings on site, are you going to be supporting having like an on-site residence for people and guests? And I think for the local community, but also global community, are you going to be supporting people from other countries? Are you going to be supporting refugees? All these things that are going to be impacting our world, and just seeing how this is my first time here. I just basically want to listen and learn, and just exploring the possibilities of greatness.
Great, thanks. Yeah, ask any questions. Everything's totally open. Any emotions, any questions are totally invited to be here. So, Melissa?
Hi, I am a nonprofit worker in Santa Barbara. I'm the director of training at AHA, which is an organization that brings social emotional learning and connection and community to teenagers and families and educators in Santa Barbara, Carp, and Goleta. And I've been with them for about 11 years. And so my interest in this work has a lot to do with the overlap between what I've been doing and what this is. Really exciting to hear about, Edwin, what you've been up to with the empathy circles. And I'm really well connected in this community around those issues. And I just recently finished my master's in clinical psychology. I'm training to become a psychotherapist. And I have a lot of interest in intentional community as an answer to a lot of the problems that the world faces right now. And it begins, of course, with empathy, begins with knowing how to be together in a constructive way and in a way that fulfills everybody's need to belong. And we've been sort of poking around our community, with AHA, thinking we need a retreat center. We need a retreat center. We looked at a property up the pass that didn't work out, and to be able to team up with others to have a space where we can go and be with nature and be unplugged with kids and with people who care for kids is really exciting. So to be able to be in this conversation is like, it might be making me lose a tiny bit of sleep. And just as a human person, I feel like I have so many things that I can offer to this process. And I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Oh, great, thanks. Dennis?
Well, I hardly know where to start. I lived in Santa Barbara off and on for 20 to 25 years. And I lived in a retreat center about 4 miles east of this retreat center. Around the year 2000, I lived at Casa de Maria for probably 3 years on Ladera Lane. So I'm very, very familiar with this terrain, and I'm just sort of wonderstruck at a proposal that's happening on a terrain that I know so well. So I'm wonderstruck by that. I'm a communication skills scholar and trainer and writer, and so my interests have a deep overlap with empathy circles. Wow. So I'm usually pretty verbal about exploring new ideas, but in this case, I'm sort of wonderstruck by this idea. It's almost as though that particular seminary is like a flying saucer that just landed in Santa Barbara. In my mind, it's like, this is really enormous, and I'm trying to get my mind around it. But I certainly do. I do a lot of things on the web. I'm a web programmer and manage about 50 websites. So I definitely want to be a participant in helping the retreat center get going by expanding a web presence.
And you're in Eugene presently?
Yes, Eugene, Oregon.
Great. Okay, thanks, Dennis. Kathleen?
Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here with all of you today. And Dennis, I'm your neighbor in Springfield, Oregon. And I am anticipating embarking on a nomadic life sometime later this year. It'll be the second time in my lifetime that I've gone home free and and traveling as a major part of my life. I am a peacemaker by profession. I facilitate meetings, I mediate, I do a lot of interpersonal communication coaching. I host a weekly podcast called Co-Creating Peace, which is about conscious communication and conflict transformation. And I have been a witness to the genesis of multiple retreat centers. I've helped facilitate planning meetings around one retreat center and also one planned, not planned, but intentional. Planned community and intentional community are so different from one another. Intentional community in Taos. One for senior citizens, which was a great experience. And that's so among the things that I hope to be able to offer in service to this retreat center are my skills. And I also do a lot of personal and professional development training, teaching people what I know. And I have been a practitioner and teacher of traditional healing arts for the majority of my adult life since my 20s. But my income is earned from my peacemaking work, and my healing arts are of gift to others. And I feel like this is divine order, that I have connected with you at this time, Edwin, and all of you, and with this retreat center. And I hope to be a very active part of it. I am already invested in its success with my entire being, heart and soul. And
Right.
so honored and delighted to be with you all.
Yeah,
and I
so-
also go by Cat, by the way. Athalia or Cat, either one is fine.
Okay. See, okay, you need to leave at 11:15, so we have about an hour. Thanks for that, Melissa. So I had posted the vision statement and a mission statement. It's basically the current vision and mission is to build a culture of empathy. So that's what we're working towards with the retreat center. My brother owns the property. We're setting up a nonprofit which will lease the property from him currently. And the nonprofit is the Empathy Center with the mission of creating a more empathic society. And along those lines, we use the empathy circle practice for our initial discussions. It's the most effective sort of first step gateway practice, sort of a very foundational practice for building empathy and developing an empathic way of being. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Hopefully everyone's familiar with the process of seeing the instructions. And so we're going to start with our topic, which is, what is your vision for an empathy-based retreat center at 1964 Canoas Road, Santa Barbara? And we're going to have 4-minute turns. There's going to be a speaker, and you're going to select your listener. So you'll share an idea or two and then pause. And your listener is going to reflect back their understanding of what you said. So they'll kind of recap it. You check, did they understand it correctly? If not, you can say it in other words until you feel heard to your satisfaction. So it's really about you feeling heard and understood to your satisfaction. If they didn't, understand you, you say it again till you feel heard. If they did hear you, then you just continue with your train of thought until the time is up. And I don't know, Dwayne, are you up for doing the facilitation? Just be the first listener, and I don't know if you got a sign or something, or if not, I can ask Bill if you weren't ready for it. So yeah, it's up to you.
I don't have any signs. I'm happy to facilitate.
Okay. Okay, so you'll be the first listener, and whoever wants to get started, just 4-minute turns.
Okay, and I will add as the facilitator that it's important to remember to pause in between your ideas so that the person who's reflecting back will have an opportunity to reflect more accurately what you're sharing. And to reminder for the people who are the silent listeners that you're an important part of the process because you help us hold the space together. So we're ready to get started now. So I'll be the first listener, and do we have a volunteer for the first speaker?
in the absence of anyone else, I'll go ahead and share my thoughts. My
Okay.
vision for an empathy-based retreat center is that it is a space where everyone feels safe, where they feel safe to be who they are, speak from their highest and wisest and truest self, as well as their other selves that struggle. And sometimes we're afraid to reveal the shadows within us. And I see this place as being
Can I
space,
ask you to pause so I can reflect back effectively
of course.
what you're saying? Excuse me for interrupting you. So, if I understand what you shared correctly, Kathleen, one of your primary visions for this space is a space for safety for people, the space for people to be themselves, to be who they are, and whatever that definition is for them. But and I, if you could continue, I missed some things.
Yes, thank you, Dwayne. That it needs to be a place where people feel safe, revealing their shadow self and processing through their shadows in a place of safety and empathy and compassion, and where they feel warmly embraced.
Okay, so in your words, a space where people can reveal their shadow space, that and they can reveal this side of themselves and feel in a warm space where they feel supported and accepted.
Yes, yes. And also a place where people can learn new wisdoms and find greater empowerment and connection with one another and with the planet. And this is a place that I envision to be a place of harmony between the planet and the people and the people and the people.
So you envision this as a space of harmony, a space of harmony between planet and people and planet, a place where people, and I missed part of that.
Where people are in harmony with the planet and with one another. Yes. And I also see this as being multi-generational, that there be a place where children can be and be celebrated and participate in many of the same kinds of activities that the adults are. And that it's a place for people in our senior years to be as well, and that the whole gamut of ages is embraced and welcomed and thrive while they're there and because they're there.
And so you see this as a multi-generational space, a space for children to be celebrated and to feel safe and to express themselves, but also a space for people like me, seniors, where that we can feel comfortable and there's some interaction and a place for growth and development for seniors as well.
Yes, yes. And then lastly, I will say that I envision it as a place where society's most vulnerable can come and spend some time. And that might be our unhoused community members, might be undocumented immigrants, but where they too have the opportunity to experience the center and the empathy that comes there.
You also see this as an inclusive space for our most vulnerable, some of our most vulnerable classes of people out there. You mentioned people who are houseless. You mentioned people who are considered refugees, and to provide a space and give them the opportunity to experience the empathy and the energy and healing that comes with that. But to really ultimately be an inclusive space also for vulnerable classes of people.
Yes. Thank you, Dwayne. I feel heard.
Oh, thank you, Kathleen. And now I become the next speaker. And Bill, would you like to be my listener?
Sure, Dwayne, I'd love to.
When I heard the news that Edwin would have an opportunity to develop this space, I immediately thought about my younger days, my childhood.
So when you heard about Edwin, coming into and his brother coming into this space, it reminded you of your experience as a child.
When I was in junior high school, I had a chance to participate in a weekend retreat for a selected group of students at my junior high school.
So when you're in junior high, you were able to participate in a weekend retreat.
And the highlight of that weekend was the moments that we shared in circles, both in larger circles and later smaller circles, speaking and really listening to each other.
Yeah, and you felt that the highlight of that experience was both in small and large circles, speaking and really listening to each other.
And that experience had a really profound impact in my life, and understanding the importance of listening and really listening to someone and the opportunities that listening created in human relationships and development.
Yeah, so what really stood out to you is that the retreat and the way it was structured allowed people to really listen to each other, and that profoundly, had a profound effect on you.
Yeah. And so when I thought about Edwin having this physical space, it reminded me of the work that you were doing, Bill, with schools and the ideas of developing programs for working with schools.
Yeah, when you heard about this, it reminded you, and thinking about your own school experience, of the work that I've been doing, trying to work with empathy in schools.
Yeah, and what an amazing opportunity that creates for developing programs that start with children in middle schools or high schools. And what a perfect space for doing this.
Yeah, it just seems like a perfect space for, supporting retreats like you attended when you were, in middle school, in order to support this sort of listening and communication.
And I think it is really important as an overall part of the empathy movement, that there's more opportunities created for these ideas to be shared with young people, with our children, with our teenagers.
So you just think, well, not just, but you think that, that it's very important as we try to build a culture of empathy to really share these skills with young people.
Yeah, and so with this great opportunity, I hope more people get involved, with more educators, more people connected to schools and students and learning, get more involved with your group that meets on Thursday, and that you're able to develop some programs that can take place at Edwin's new retreat center in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, and you're hoping that this opens up an avenue to basically get more educators involved, to connect with me and what I'm doing, but all in the service of giving young people more experience in listening and being heard.
Yes, thank you, Bill. I feel fully heard.
Great. Okay, Dennis, will you listen to me?
Yes.
Okay. So, after decades of being a special education teacher and going on a lot of these retreats or trainings, not retreats, but trainings mostly, There are just too many times when I've been in a 4 or 5 day retreat. They lock the doors, they close the windows, there's no light, and they don't want you to be distracted. And so you're in a windowless room with fluorescent lighting for 4 or 5 days.
So you remember this experience of being just kind of locked in and not part of a beautiful, natural, supportive environment.
Yes, exactly. Um, and I've also been part of trainings where they actually the Touch for Health people, which is a 2 day training where they took breaks every 40 minutes and they really kind of adapted their training towards the natural rhythmic process of human beings. And I experienced how different it was and how much less stressful it was.
So you experienced in your own life how there was a whole spectrum of ways of organizing these groups, and some of them were a lot more welcoming to the really accommodating the needs of the people who showed up in the room.
Yeah. Um, and um, and I certainly liked everything I've heard so far. But what I'm really excited about is that I feel that the empathy circle is sort of like it's a veil that kind of pulls back our social conditioning. And when that conditioning is turned away, we don't have monsters from the id. If you Forbidden Planet, I date myself, but there's not monsters from the id, but actually, angels from our heart.
So you can feel that there's beautiful possibilities here of living from our best self. And somebody is actually knocking on my door, so I need to take a
Okay.
10-second break to decline the visit at my door.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, I can
Okay, great. Thanks. Um, yeah, so uh, so so I think that the magic of what happens is people get to, yes, they can kind of discover their own, dark side, so to speak, but really, that's not what we really are. And so therefore, in the empathy circle, given a lot of freedom, we realize that we really are at heart empathic. I'll stop there.
So you find that in the empathy circles, our deepest and most beautiful possibilities of being human come to the fore.
Yeah, and I dealt again decades with special ed, very real extreme, severely emotionally disturbed. Uh, I things where people did some really ugly things, and I believe so that all the bad behavior we see is that we are intrinsically empathic and we intrinsically want to collaborate. And what the bad behavior we see is that when we are subject to conditions that stress us out, where that is not the case, that's when people get angry and act out.
So you've seen people at their worst, but you know that their best is in there and that empathy circles could play a role in bringing out the best that's in people.
Thanks, Dennis. I feel fully heard.
Now, Dennis, you become the next speaker, and you can pick someone in the group who to be your listener, and preferably someone who hasn't gone yet.
Well, let's see. I'll pick someone I've never met before, Kathleen, just to have a new experience. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Dennis.
Um, Well, I feel moved to go somewhat outside the boundaries of the agenda, really for the cause of the agenda. And that in order to be part of this group, I need to share some experiences that I've had in Santa Barbara, and I need to share a little about Casa de Maria, because the Empathy Center is moving into a complex emotional environment that includes the aftermath of a natural disaster. So since around 1950, there has been in Santa Barbara a beautiful retreat center called Casa de Maria. And Casa
If you could pause,
okay.
Dennis,
Sure.
just maybe you
Yes.
didn't see Dwayne was holding up the pause sign just as
Oh
a
yeah,
reminder.
I apologize. Yes.
No worries. And unfortunately, I'm practiced at retaining to reflect, so hopefully I will catch it. So in this moment, you feel the need to vary a little bit from the agenda that Edwin had set out for us, because prior to moving into sharing your vision for the future, you'd like to reflect a little bit on the past and share with us a little bit of your experience of the past and the area that we're looking at this retreat center being, and recognizing the connection between this moment in time and what has happened recently with the place that this retreat center will be. Did I get
Yes,
that right?
thank you. Yes. Well, the thing is, what looms so large in my mind right now is that this new empathy center is going to be coming into a place where for half a century, people had this beloved retreat center, La Casa de Maria, which was destroyed by a mudslide about 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago. And the community was just utterly brokenhearted by this, and the people at Casa de Maria are struggling to put the pieces back together. And the buildings of this new retreat center even look, I mean, maybe they got the same architect, I don't know, when they built these buildings, but the environment is so similar. And because I spent so much time at Casa de Maria, it looms large in my mind, larger perhaps than it would loom in the minds of all of you, that, wow, this is a part of a ongoing dialogue, or something's going on here, and I'm trying to feel my way through it.
So the community has felt a huge loss with Casa de Maria having been destroyed, and the community is trying to find its way back to healing, and yet there is this big absence. And it sounds as though in a certain way perhaps you see this new retreat center almost as being sort of a phoenix rising out of the mud, perhaps of that has taken Casa de Maria, or at the very least, it sounds as though it might help heal the community from the loss.
Yes, it's there's multiple strands of feeling, and I was very attached to Casa de Maria. So those feelings, I mean, I kind of represent Santa Barbara and that half century of experience. And I'm hoping that something profoundly creative will be able to, that many of the people who went to Casa de Maria will want to become part of this new community, and that this new community could be a kind of refuge and encouragement for the Casa de Maria community that's still in Santa Barbara to gradually rebuild that retreat center and find their way back.
Okay, so this new retreat center may not necessarily be a replacement for Casa de Maria, but perhaps a place where the people who were so engaged with it in the past can have a place to be while they go through their recovery process and possibly the renewal of Casa de Maria, and that perhaps this retreat center can sort of help foster that.
Be a powerful ally,
me,
be
Dennis,
an amazing ally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, excuse me, Dennis, your time is up.
Okay.
And you can continue your ideas on your next turn. Thank you. And now, Kathleen, it's your turn to be the speaker and to pick someone else to be your listener. And, again, preferably somebody who hasn't spoken yet.
Okay. I forgot that I hadn't that I hadn't spoken yet. How about Will? Will, would you like to be my listener? Okay, thank you. So I think there is something very important in this era in terms of creating sacred spaces. And I see this new retreat center as being a sacred space, and a sacred space for people to be able to heal, be able to celebrate, be able to be able to connect.
And Kathleen, I hear you, or Kat, I hear you say that you would like to see this be a sacred space for healing and celebrating life. And I might be short one.
And connecting.
And connecting.
With each other and the planet, yes. And I also see it as a place where we can have dialogue between people who are traumatized and need a place to heal, between people who are more focused on their differences than their similarities, where we can bridge divides and heal wounds.
Yeah, so to have dialogue and to heal trauma and celebrate diversity among us all.
Yes. And I see a place where there can be opportunities to heal mind, body, and soul with different modalities, and where I'm sorry, in this moment right now, I'm being distracted by a deja vu moment, because I know that I have already shared my thoughts, because Dwayne was my listener, and I didn't think that we had heard from Will and Melissa. So in this moment, I'm fragmenting in my focus because of this awareness. And so I'm wondering, would it be all right if I stopped now, because we haven't yet heard from others, and I know that I did do this sharing. And I know that Melissa has first. So this is where I am.
Yeah, if Will, you just reflect that back, and once you want, if you want to stop, you just say, "I feel fully heard," so you can end at any point, and it passes on. So if you just reflect that back, what you heard, Will.
Yeah, to have the opportunities as a healing center for the body, mind, and soul, and then all I have in is about passing it on and let others share.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, now will you become the next speaker, and if you can pick someone to be your listener, and again, preferably somebody that hasn't gone yet.
I would like to pick Melissa, be my listener. And so I just want to start by going back to my early years and where empathy came into my life. I have a sister who has cerebral palsy and severely mentally challenged. I grew up with a lot of touch. I had to touch her and massage her constantly. And back in the day there was a lot of prejudice on handicap. We would be refused to come into places and to be celebrated for, you know, who we were, and not only as a family, but just for my sister alone, and who she was. And
Excuse me, well, could I ask you to pause so Melissa have an opportunity to reflect?
I can just go like this.
yeah, she nudged.
So what I heard you say was that the beginnings of your interest in passion for empathy have roots in your having a sister with cerebral palsy, and how you cared for her was really empathic, both in touch and in, uh-oh, here comes a kid.
Mhm.
Go around this way. Go, no, it's okay, come in, but just go. We're on a Zoom, just go around. To not be seen. And I think, did I cover it?
Yes. In my early years of construction was when the handicap laws came into effect, and one of the first places I worked was where my sister lived at United Cerebral Palsy Center.
One of the first places that you worked was at the center where your sister lived. Yeah, okay. If you want to say more about that, that's interesting. I think we're having an earthquake
maybe
right now in Santa Barbara. Just the door is shaking. I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
You're okay?
Yeah.
Well, that was good. That was very moving. All the powers to be right here. So with that and you know, being interested in what visions are going to be happening, I guess my strongest things are about how the architecture and the site is going to, you know, welcome people into comfortable spaces of being.
So what I'm hearing is that you have a strong interest in how the spaces cultivate the kind of environment that we're all talking about.
Yes.
Like the contribution of the spaces and the indoor and outdoor spaces, I'm guessing.
Right, to welcome in the vulnerable, the handicapped, you know, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering along here. I was a little rattled.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
You know, just you know, the connections I've had with nature and the healing aspects of being able to be grounded in nature, having an environment that you know, allows healing. And I'm sorry, I keep getting lost in this, but I'll be a little better next time.
Okay. Yes, healing aspects of nature, very important. and a part of what you would want to see in this space really attended to.
Yes,
Yes. Do you feel heard?
I feel heard.
Okay, now, Melissa, you become our next speaker, and you can pick someone to listen to you.
Okay. Edwin, are you participating
Yep,
as a
and
listener?
we all
Yep.
participate. I'm listening.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to apologize for the distraction. Various distractions over here.
Mhm. You want to apologize for the earthquake?
The earthquake. You feel the earthquake? Okay. So, and also 22-year-old grown children walking through in their underwear
Oh,
and being directed to not be in this view
uh-huh.
of the Zoom.
You've got a couple of distractions there that are, yeah.
Yes. When I spoke with you, Edwin, we talked about how much we love Esalen. And to me, that's sort of the pinnacle of what a retreat center can be. And there's just so much about that place and space that I would love to see integrated into what's happening here. That being said, Esalen is really exclusive and expensive.
So we had talked about Esalen, both love the place, and you see that as like the pinnacle of a retreat center, and how do you incorporate some of that energy into this center, but maybe without the exclusivity and cost price.
Yes, yes. My vision is, I think now more than ever, a space for true pause and rest is really needed by every single human person, even children, particularly because of our sort of digital immersion as a culture.
You're really seeing a place for rest and rejuvenation is needed by everyone. Even, children need that too, because all the digital world that they live in.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really resonated with the sharing around working in schools, because that's a big part of what we do at AHA, and it's getting increasingly squished in terms of being able to get in there and do anything for enough time to really have an impact. There's not enough space in the schedule, and it's not prioritized enough, at least by the schools where we work.
So the work you're doing with AHA to bring these skills into the schools, at that time is getting squished to allow that space. And I'm hearing some regret or concern about that, maybe.
Yeah, and we in my training, I've been repeatedly, told that, the smash and grow model, where you get people into a space where they have a big growth moment, and then you plop them back into their lives, that doesn't really work, that people need to integrate. And so I understand that. And yet I almost want to ask for a return to smash and grow because it's the only way that people can drop in enough to experience the quiet that's required for self-awareness and change.
So there's a model of smash and grow, where you have a very intense experience and you go out and you take that out with you, and you've had a deep experience. And sounds like there's criticism of that, but you see some benefits of it too, that maybe you do need that at some level.
And I think that's where retreat centers are becoming increasingly important. I'm thinking about the models. This is only hearsay for me, but what I've heard is that, in certain European, Scandinavian countries, if you're stressed out, you get prescribed 6 weeks at the spa.
Mm-hmm.
And you get your time paid off, and you go and you do your rest if that's what you need.
Yeah, so the European approach is, if you're kind of getting burned out, you get 6 weeks of rest, and you'd maybe kind of like to see that here, something like that.
Some version
too.
of it,
Some
maybe just a
version,
weekend. A weekend might be a good start.
Yeah, even just a weekend would be a good a start. 2 days versus 6 weeks.
Right. And I resonate with also what people are saying about, especially supporting teachers, supporting, vulnerable populations who are overworked and overwhelmed. And Bill, I gotta just give you huge kudos for doing the work that you did in special ed, because I know how, I mean, that's gold medal stuff. And I work with educators, so I see how stuck in a system that is just increasingly not working that they are, and they care so much for the kids that they're with, but there's no way to express that care, and they need a place to go and be taken care of.
So the system that the educators are in seems very demanding, and you just are appreciating that what educators go through, especially like Bill with what he was working with. And you see that the teachers maybe need a retreat center, someplace to go to rejuvenate too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Melissa, that was your
That was
time.
my time. Perfect. I was just going to say, I feel so heard. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay. I'm going to actually speak back to you since I know you need to go a little early, so I'll get an extra turn in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had written down, just because of what Will was saying about permaculture. In terms of the aesthetic, I kind of like, I'm, into gardening and sort of organic gardening, sort of permaculture, and how the space could be used for that. Because right now it's very institutional, and I think that something like that could shift it to more a lived, living environment.
Yeah, I hear you saying that you're thinking about permaculture as a system of design that could transform a kind of institutional feel that this space has right now.
Yeah, so I'm even imagining like a little terracing, I've been looking into like terracing. You see these Italian places up on the hill, and it's all these terraced hills. I mean, this is like a 10, 20 year sort of a project probably, but just to shift it and make it more sort of also maybe even a research center for that type of farming or gardening, organic, dry, landscape gardening, farming.
They're imagining, I'm going to go backwards, you're even a research center to investigate that sort of traditional / terrace version of farming. And there was something before that. Help me remember. You said something.
It's just that it's terracing and gardening, just bring in the gardening,
yes.
basically.
20-year project is what.
Oh yeah, 20-year. Yeah, that's a lot of terracing to do.
Yeah.
And I'd interviewed someone who's a ecological architect. His name was Sim Vanderen, and he had written a book called Design for an Empathic World. So he's using design to design. I think it's kind of like what Will is talking about, right? The design creates sort of this atmosphere, and how do you create an atmosphere, an environment that sort of physically supports empathic connection and listening and all this safety and all those different openness.
Yeah. I'm hearing you talk about some scholarly support for designing spaces that are empathic, and some interest in going in that direction.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking about is it's one thing having visioning, which is a lot of fun, but then there's the nuts and bolts of how do you form teams, how do you get all that together, how do you do the finances, and that is kind of at that stage, and it's like, oh, this is hard. That's a lot of work, the nuts and bolts of turning that vision into tangible processes.
Yes, I feel that you are a visionary at heart, and the visioning process is maybe feeling a lot more fun than the nuts and bolts part that's coming.
Yeah. So let's see, what else did I have? So that's the other thing one thing I'm thinking of is that we have regular volunteer sessions, like we do these empathy circles just to connect with the community, kind of bring people in, but setting up some visioning circles that are just for people interested in volunteering to begin with, as a way of connecting with people, just so we get to know who people are, what their interest is, how well they follow through on the things that they're, interested in doing there, and so forth. So I'm thinking that might be sort of a next step for,
So you're imagining a next step of circles of people. I'm going to take it a little further to see if I'm understanding the subtext, to start to move into that more nuts and bolts
Yeah,
period, to sort of vet people at a volunteer way and have them vet each other and just connect and get to know each other in these kinds of circles.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I feel fully heard. That was my time there. So you're up again, so select your listener.
Oh, to share again?
Yes.
Yeah, as soon as when you've been the listener, you again become the speaker and you select your listener.
Okay. And that was intentional because I have to go at 11:15. Yes. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, maybe I'll go back to Dwayne.
Hello, I'm ready to be your listener.
Wow. Oh, I get to talk more. How exciting. One of the things that I think about is honoring the indigenous roots of the place. That's feeling more and more important to do in this area. I know in every area there are people to thank who didn't give up their land on purpose. But I just want to name that as something that could be part of this process.
One of the things, Melissa, that you think is really important is honoring the indigenous roots of the land and the people, honoring people who had to give up their property. And you think this is would be an important part of this retreat center as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love what people are saying about inclusivity. As somebody who's worked in the nonprofit world for quite a while, it was hard for me at first because a lot of it was about begging rich people for money and making sure that they liked what we were doing enough to keep giving us money. And that somehow, it was a hard learning curve for me. I was in fundraising, and when I first became part of this organization, I was a grant writer. And now it's really gotten to feel like a beautiful sort of a positive Robin Hood kind of a situation. And I feel like, especially in this town where there's so much wealth, that there are more possibilities for enabling people with all kinds of means to be part of this and to have the space available to them.
See if I got all that.
Mouthful.
I know that you love the idea of what's been shared about inclusivity of this space and being an inclusive space. And you reference your experience in the nonprofit world and in the early days, how it felt like begging rich people for money initially, but then you thought of it more of as a Robin Hood type experience where, you could use these resources to create opportunities for those who didn't have access to these resources, and the importance of this being a space for people. I'll use the term that we used earlier, vulnerable classes of people and other people who traditionally don't have access to spaces like this, and the tremendous amount of wealth that exists in a place like Santa Barbara. I'll go ahead and mention Oprah lives in that area somewhere. And at this, having your connections, being able to access some of those resources would help facilitate the process of providing vulnerable classes of people and more inclusivity in this center.
Yes.
I hope I
Wow.
got it all.
No, that was awesome. And I think I love the work that you do with empathy circles, and then also the work that we do. We call them connection circles, and they're a little bit different. Is that we actually can meet people where they are, no matter where they are. Another thing about a center like Esalen is like you have to want to go and do some really deep kind of work, and a lot of people are not anywhere near a space of having been exposed to that kind of work, but this is so tangible and simple and easy. It's just about connecting with the resources that are all around you all the time in the form of other human beings. If you want to reflect that piece, I can. I think I'm going somewhere with this, but
Sure.
yeah.
You like the idea of the use of empathy circles, which is similar to a process that you work with called connection circles, which is a little bit different. And you mentioned the idea that a place like an Esalen Center is something that's really exclusive and it's not accessible to majorities of people. And so you like the idea of having a tangible, well, you also share the idea that you often go out and do your work with people where they are. And so, but you also like this idea of having this tangible space where some of these same groups could come and participate in and have access to things like connection circles or empathy circles or other processes like this.
Thank you. Yes, and I don't want to finish my last turn without mentioning embodiment as something that's really important to me. I've been studying somatic psychotherapy, and I'm a yoga teacher and a longtime movement artist, dancer person, and I want to just be a voice for that in this process. Even the planning process, I think, can be embodied. And then also just in terms of what's offered and what people can access there, to have that be woven in would be a beautiful thing, I think.
See if I can capture all this. You think of the importance of, you want to mention embodiment, and you think that embodiment is something that can be an essential part both in creating this space and also during the operation of the space. You're studying psychotherapy, you've been a yoga teacher, you've been involved in different kinds of dance and movement through most of your life, and you think embodiment is an essential core part of whatever will be done with the center in the present and in the future. Did I
Yes.
get everything?
Yes, thank you. I feel heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing. And now I will be the next speaker. And I think, Dennis, you haven't spoken for a while. Will you be my listener?
I'll be happy to be your listener.
Thank you. One of the things I enjoy about empathy circles is the learning process for me that takes place, my own personal growth and development.
So as you participate, you have the subjective experience that you're actually learning some new things along the way.
Yeah, and the opportunity to see people differently than what they look like.
So you're seeing people, the empathy circle process is causing you to experience people in new ways. So you're getting to know them from new angles.
And I think it's important, this idea of seeing people differently than what we look like, than what they look like.
So beyond just superficial appearances, now you're kind of seeing with the eyes of the heart, or you're seeing more of a person's deep concerns and not just how they comb their hair or something.
Yes. And, one of the other things that empathy circle models offers is the opportunity to see what we share in common and the opportunities that creates for building relationships and being able to work together on different projects, different ideas.
So as you're participating in the empathy circles, you're really experiencing this kind of opening toward deeper forms of cooperation.
Yes, and which is something that I think is going to be essential for Edwin opening up this new center and doing it in a way that's hasn't been done before.
So this big new project of opening the center is going to require a lot of empathizing in a lot of different directions in order to be successful.
Yes, and it's going to require things like, for example, when Edwin mentioned the finances and the numbers, it's going to take a really skilled nonprofit board that brings a variety of different skills to bear in helping to run the organization.
So you can see how a project this big and wonderful is going to require some a very skillful support team to make the finances and all the pieces fit together.
Yes. And I specifically spoke for a nonprofit board of directors who have the diversity of experiences, but also it's going to take a variety of skilled volunteers to help facilitate the development in the other areas of this center.
So in order to flourish from where you see it, this community is there's going to be concentric circles of participants, including a very skillful board and also a kind of network of volunteer supporters and participants who will weave all the elements together in a project this large.
Yes, and just have a few seconds left. And so I'll speak to this more in my next term, but there's also a need, and there's always a need to be aware of language, how we use language, and the importance of using language as a tool to create what it is that we want to create in our lives in this space.
So language is one of the ways that we weave our lives together, and it's going to play a role in how we weave this project together.
Yes. Thank you, Dennis. I feel fully heard. And now, once again, you're our next speaker, and you can pick someone from the group who anyone that you want, because we've all spoken now.
Well, I'm gonna pass. I feel like I feel as participating as a listener is I feel completely involved. So I don't have anything else to say right this second. I'm processing everything that everybody has said, and it's good to be here.
Can you just select someone and they'll just reflect back what you said, and then you just say, I'm fully heard?
All right. How about you, Bill?
Sure. So you feel that you've said, pretty much what you wanted to say, and but you're enjoying and feeling enriched by listening to others' ideas.
Yeah, and I feel like in the process of being a listener, I'm participating in what's going on in a way that's really satisfying. And so I'm trying to stay attentive to how much or how little I need to say, especially because I'm a big talker. So at this part of my life, I'm sort of leaning toward listening more and lecturing less, or even taking shorter turns.
Yeah. So you feel that your experience is that you can be a big talker, and you really are trying to hone or really focus on the listening aspect and talking less. And you enjoy listening to what's being said here.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
My pleasure, Dennis. Okay, I'll go to Kathleen.
Thank you.
Sure.
I am ready to listen to you, Bill.
Yeah, well, I want to thank Melissa for her acknowledgement. A lot of people don't ever see that, the work that we did. So I understand about the time commitments And so I've developed several strategies in order to deal with that. And so the idea, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for noticing. So you wanted to acknowledge and express gratitude to Melissa because she recognized your experience as a special ed teacher, and that you recognize that people don't always see that or acknowledge that to you, and so that was significant for you, it sounded like. And I'm sorry, I did not retain your last sentence. Would you say it again for me, please, Bill?
Yeah. So what I've been able to do is develop several strategies in order to address the time crunch that teachers and educators have.
Okay. All right. So from your experience now, you see some approaches that you've developed that could help teachers with the time challenges that they often have. Did I get that
Right. Yeah. And broken down, what that means is that you have to establish motivation, in the students, which number one would be by them being heard. I'll stop there.
All right. So one of the factors that you see very important to give attention to is the motivation. And part of what inspires motivation is when we feel heard by others.
Right. So that would then create the desire in the students to participate, and very important. And then the next thing would be you have to teach the skills, and the skills can then be broken down and actually can be taught within the context of literary analysis. So you could use any book that the teacher is using with the class, and then develop the listening skills by listening to the characters.
All right. So recognizing that there is a powerful inspiration that comes to people when they feel heard, and that one of the ways to help inspire that and build and develop that gift of being able to give people the experience of feeling deeply heard is to model that for them, teach them that in a way that that might seem a little bit indirect, but could be very effective by doing that through the use of literary tools and books and helping people be able to, if I understood you correctly, to be able to learn and listen by absorbing somebody reading from a book aloud. Is that what you're talking about?
It could be various modalities.
Mhm.
And so yeah, and so then it can be developed where once you establish the motivation and the skills, you could take even 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning of a day, sort of like an introductory time, have the kids split up into dyads or triads and listen to each other. And again, based on my experience, I think that you would have a reduction of about 30% in behavioral referrals. This is something that could be easily measured.
All right. So there's the steps that you're seeing are, creating that motivation and then giving them the skills to be able to deeply hear one another, and then creating the space every day for them to have that opportunity to connect in those ways. And that through that deep connection that they would have a chance to not only practice, but repeatedly experience that then that could entirely shift the dynamic of their behavior. Is that right?
Yes. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
All right. So let's see. We still have a little bit of time for me to go ahead and go. Is that
Yep,
right?
got about 15, 20 minutes.
All right. I'm going to go back to Will as my listener again, because I sort of stopped my last time in midstream. So if you're willing, Will, I would be grateful. And you're muted, by the way, just as an FYI, but I got your mouth reading.
Okay.
All right.
I
Yeah.
am. Thanks.
So I want to say that as I'm listening to everyone, I am feeling so inspired. There is so much brilliance being woven in here, and I'm seeing so many different facets of possibility, and I'm seeing more and more illumination of those facets as I listen to everyone.
Kat, I hear you saying that you're feeling inspired by all the brilliance and possibilities, and if you could help me out with the last part.
I don't actually remember, so I think what you said works. Yes, I see the more that I hear of the different thoughts that everyone is having, the more possibilities I see blossoming as a result.
You see a lot of possibilities blooming through the interactions here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I really, I liked what I was hearing from Edwin in terms of I want to build on what I heard from Edwin in terms of the gardening and so forth, because I have witnessed the healing that comes from planting our seeds and then nurturing the plants and then having the plants nurture us in the form of food. And so there's a beautiful healing cycle in that also breeds empathy with the earth and with nature.
You really liked and want to build on what Edwin was saying about gardening and hands-on approach to being with the earth. You've witnessed this firsthand in the healing qualities of that.
Yes, and the empathy that comes with that. Yes, that comes from that. And the other piece that I'll say, and this is really maybe too big initially, but there is the profound experience of coming into this life and bringing another life in, the birthing process. And there's the profound experience of leaving one's body and leaving this life, the dying experience. And not sure how this would manifest in the retreat center, but both of those experiences are ones where deep empathy is deeply needed.
You're not sure how it will play out in bringing this to the forefront, but there's deep empathy in both the birth process and the dying process.
Yes, and I think probably the more realistic initial possibility might be if there were perhaps a hospice building, for example, at the retreat center. Again, because it's an experience that can feel so alone, and that I think for a person to have the opportunity to experience empathy and people around them as they're leaving this lifetime could be profoundly evolutionary for the person who is leaving, as well as for those who are there during their passing time.
So with an opportunity to have hospice care would open up support for those in the process of passing, and to be an angel here on earth to witness those that are in hospice care.
Yes, and deeper than the witnessing is the empathizing, both for the person doing the empathizing and the person who is preparing to pass and feeling as though they are not alone. They are being empathized with. There is someone on the journey with them.
So having the empathy on both sides for anyone in hospice care.
Yeah.
Is that a good summary?
Yes, although in all honesty, the in-hospice care isn't quite hitting the mark. It's the departing of this lifetime. That's really what I want people to, that's really the important piece for me right here, right now. So hospice care feels sterile compared to the journey of exiting this body, this lifetime, this consciousness.
It must be pretty powerful what you said, because I got lost in the words. And
And that's okay. And it was, and I'm feeling high emotion right now. So yes, but I do feel heard by you, and I am grateful for that. Thank you, Will.
thank you. God.
And Will's up next.
Oh,
So I'm complete.
yeah, now you're the speaker, and if you could pick your listener, Will.
I would like to pick Dennis Rivers. Well, I'm excited to be in this process right now, because it's giving me skills to be a better communicator and a better listener, and I seem to stumble around a bit until I can settle in, and I'm feeling more settled in. I'm feeling more comfortable.
So you're enjoying participating in this partly because you're learning some new skills or a new way of being present with other people.
Thank you. Yes, Dennis. I like seeing what is creation for me is, and the process that I've witnessed is in helping dreams turn into reality. There are visions. Visions go into drawing it out or planning spaces, and then developing from there, building and living the dream.
So you're feeling this it's coming up in your mind, this sequence of how a project unfolds through different stages.
Thank you, Dennis. I put down a couple of notes here. Going back to the gardens and my experience, I've always had a medicinal and culinary herb garden because they're so hardy and they don't need a lot of care, and they are also have been some of the best learning tools in my life for what is indigenous to our local environments, and just how medicinal herbs have always been the healers of us humans, animals, and planet.
So as you think about the gardening topic, it's bringing up your experience with medicinal herbs and how just having a medicinal herb garden has taught you a lot, has kind of many levels of wisdom in it about how the garden is related to the surrounding territory, and just the rhythm of living things.
Yes, and how it's all, we are all connected in that. Also, in seeing kids, AHA has a program where they do a garden, and it's been moved around and juggled around quite a bit of moving sites. But I really see kids just really grounding out, in being able to dig in the earth and plant and grow and learn about plants and gardening. Been a very powerful thing to witness.
So our plans about having gardening on the site have deep implications for how we could reach out for young people to participate in the site. It sounds like you're seeing a connection there or a possibility there.
Okay. um, um, I've been feeling about just being humbled in this all too. And I feel in these connection circles and empathy circles that I'm humbled, and I'm actually like calling myself. Am I allowed to curse here? I'm allowed to call myself on my own shit, because a lot of times people that are the gurus and they have this 40,000 hours of experience become enlightened, and yet there's this shut off, and I feel in communicating the way this is unfolding that it's self-humbling, if that makes sense.
So you're feeling humbled by the experience of empathy circle processes, and it feels like it's opening up. Being humbled is opening up new possibilities for you of participating in different ways.
Yeah, and yeah, I could leave it at that. There was more there, and I'll probably swing back to it somewhere along the line here. And I feel heard, and I think I'll pass it on now.
That means I'm it. After 2 years of being
Please select your listener.
oh
First step is always select your listener.
all right. How about you, Edwin? Will you be my
Okay,
listener?
listening.
After 2 years of isolation from COVID, I'm kind of in shock to be connecting with a circle of people and having a group conversation, because at least in my world, group conversations haven't happened very much in the past couple of years. And I'm just like coming out from a long time in the closet.
Yeah, so because of COVID, you've been in the closet and you haven't had group conversations. So this is a new sort of experience coming into this group here.
I find myself struggling to stay on the topic of a retreat center on a beautiful hillside in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, you're just sort of struggling to keep on topic. You have other things you want to talk about.
Well, I think there's two things going on. One is I'm heartbroken about the war in Ukraine, and two of my grandparents came from the Ukraine. So it's a kind of family connection. And the other is that having lived and participated in a big retreat center, I know retreat centers from the inside out. And I know that retreat centers are really big projects. Of what comes into my mind is that in Lhasa in Tibet, there's this giant palace called the Potala. It's like half a mile long, and there's thousands of monks in it. Anyway, so the retreat center seems like a really big project to me.
Yeah, so you're just acknowledging that a retreat center seems like a really big project because you've been involved in retreat centers. You've seen it from the inside, as well as you're just feeling very moved by what's happening in Ukraine because you've got personal family connections with this with Ukraine. And you're holding all that at the moment.
So I feel completely heard. Thank you.
Okay, I'll speak to Dwayne.
One second, I'm resetting the timer. Okay, you can go now.
Okay. Oh, I guess I want to say first thing, just for Dennis, that within the empathy circle, everything's allowed, right? So it's like whatever's alive for you, you know, you feel free to share it. You don't have to stay on topic because sort of everything's connected.
But it would, excuse me, wanted to begin by sharing with Dennis that everything is allowed in the empathy circle, and that you're allowed to share what is ever with you. One area that we usually talk about is people have an opportunity to share what's alive for them at the moment.
Yeah, and Will was asking, oh, can I swear? You can swear as much as you want. So it's like it's all open, it's total free speech, and you will be heard to your satisfaction. So I really like to make that there's no like, oh, you know, be respectful. If you don't want to be respectful, don't be respectful. So it's nice if you are, but you're free to do whatever you want.
Also, Will, for you, you wanted to know if it was okay to swear, and Edwin said, yes, it is okay to swear. You can feel it's a free speech space. You're free to communicate in whatever way that you would like. And really, it's up to you. But not a but. However, Edwin did mention if you want to be what's considered respectful, it's also good to be what's considered respectful.
Or not. Yeah, I just want to make the point you don't have to be. So yeah, so it's that free speech, which I always find is important, you know, just for people to be heard. And the thing is you have to be willing to listen to the other person that's speaking to you too. So it's mutual, right? It's not just one way free speech, it's mutual free speech.
And you know, it's free speech is important in this space, but that also works both ways. And so not only are you encouraged, everyone's encouraged to feel free to express in whatever way they like, but to also be receptive for other people or share the space for other people to communicate in a way that they would like as well.
Yeah, exactly. And also invite Will and Melissa to visit the center since they're in Santa Barbara. It's like, I think somebody mentioned, oh, you mentioned Oprah. Oprah lives 15 minutes away, so we can go borrow some sugar or milk in her $100 million mansion in Montecito. Yeah.
Um, Edwin would encourage you, Melissa is not here, but William and Melissa to come and visit the center. It's located about 15 minutes away from Oprah's $100 million retreat space.
Yeah.
Kingdom and home. And you would maybe have an opportunity to go together to borrow sugar from Oprah. So that sounds like an exciting.
And talk to her about empathy circles. And the thing is, the center is very close to Santa Barbara. It's a 15-minute drive to downtown Santa Barbara. So it's just very centrally located. So it's easy to get to. I mean, Santa Barbara is kind of small, but yeah. So if Will wants to just drive up, you know, just let me know. I can give him the number of the groundskeeper, and we're planning on going down in a couple of weeks too, so we'll be there too.
And so, Will, if you'd like to go and you and Melissa would like to go out and explore the grounds, Edwin will give you the information to do that. It's really centrally located, about 15 minutes from the center of Santa Barbara. And if possible, hopefully you all have an opportunity to speak to Oprah about empathy.
Nice. So yeah, well, that was my time. Okay, I feel fully heard. Thank you, Dwayne. So we'll do one more round. If you want to speak, then we'll kind of open it to open discussion after you're done.
Okay, then Edwin, can I speak with you?
Okay, listening.
All right. Earlier, I spoke about the idea of having really skilled nonprofit board members.
So you brought up the topic of skilled board members for the nonprofit.
And I wanted to mention a program that I participated in that's operated by the Los Angeles Junior Chamber of Commerce.
And there's a program that you've taken part in that you like to share?
Yeah, and it's called the Reardon Leadership Institute.
And it's a leadership institute, Reardon Leadership
Yeah.
Institute.
Yeah, Richard Reardon's a former mayor of Los Angeles, and he created a leadership institute for educating and training business professionals for lifelong service in the governance of nonprofit organizations.
Oh, so this organization started by the former mayor is for teaching people how to take part, be board members of nonprofits.
And it's a really, I think it's a really great program because it focuses on young professionals and developing young professionals for lifelong careers in the nonprofit sector, not careers, but to serve on boards, nonprofit boards in their future.
Yes, you see, this is a really good resource because it has people, young people who are kind of learning about running nonprofits and being leaders. And you see, maybe it's a good resource for us.
Yeah, because one of the things that I experienced when I participated in the training was the tremendous amount of skills that the participants brought to the process.
So I'm not quite clear. You took part in a training with them, I guess, and you just felt that all the participants brought a lot of skills to the training.
I participated in the board development training many years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you took part in that board training program and just found that people just brought a lot of skills to the table.
Yeah, and the seed that was planted at the board through the board development program, I'm aware that a lot of those people are still involved in serving on nonprofit boards, of being in service in their communities, and I think that's really cool.
So the people who took this training, they've been involved in being on boards, and it's continued. And you just think that's really cool that there's all these people who have done the training continue to be doing service type work.
And one of the really interesting parts about the Reardon leadership training is they require members to intern on nonprofit boards during the training process. So they're being of service during the process.
And part of this training is you actually are an intern on nonprofit boards, so you're getting real hands-on experience.
And so, for a project, your size, Edwin, there may be an opportunity to have several interns come and work on your project, or even some of the graduates who may be interested in working on your project.
So you see, this is a really good resource to connect with, that there might be some interns that would like to work on this project, as well as some people who have done the training, are very experienced in being on boards. So a good resource.
Thank you, Edwin. I feel fully heard.
Oh, great. Yeah, I should get that info from you. Yeah, so we have about 20 minutes left. So this last part, we'll just sort of open it to any questions or comments, without without reflective listening, just sort of an open discussion. So if you have any questions or comments or thoughts or next steps, I know, Will, you had a whole list of questions, if there was any that you wanted to throw out there.
Well, I just want to put out an invite to you. If you're coming down, we have room in our house for you that you can stay, and Edwin or anybody else who is interested in coming to Santa Barbara. We have, our nest is emptying a little at a time. And then I've been on at St. Mary's many times over the years. I've walked the grounds and to go there and gather mushrooms and herbs and stuff like that. So I will take you up on that offer for the groundskeeper's number and maybe get a insight onto the buildings and stuff like that I really haven't gone into. So thank you for that.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for the offer. In terms of the space, I can give a little background that we're still trying to get the clear on the conditional use permit for the space, which is the basic document that says how many people can stay and so forth. It seems to have gone missing. It was with the county. The county doesn't have it, and they say they send it to the city, and the city says they don't have it. So we maybe have some older documents. So it's a little confusion there. But currently, there's one wing has been renovated, so there's 14 rooms that are usable, but no furnishings. So if anybody has ideas about furnishings, we're kind of looking at how to furnish those rooms. It needs everything, shower curtains, beds, everything. And then there's another wing that hasn't been renovated that was a dormitory for the seminarians. It was the Catholic seminary for something like 40 people. So we're looking at the physical renovation of that building, talking with architects and so forth. And so that's sort of the state. And yeah.
Well, as far as furnishings and stuff like that, I like putting stuff out to the universe because it seems like I have this gift of everything happens just by asking for it. So I'll keep that in mind and I'll keep in touch about that if things come up.
Yeah, 14 rooms that need furnishing, basically.
Okay. Not a problem.
So Edwin, I have a couple and offers to share, if I
Okay.
may.
Yes, please. Just
So
jump in.
if you at some point along the way need some strategic planning facilitation services, I'd be happy to support the process by facilitating strategic planning, which I've done a fair amount of. And I'd also be interested if you are developing a board of directors and seeing if there's a way that I can be of service as a member of the board of directors. Also, one of the retreat centers that I had the pleasure of observing the genesis of is called Mountain Light Sanctuary in Asheville, North Carolina. And my friend Michael Lightweaver is the steward there. And Michael uses a work trade program where people can live on the property in exchange for them doing some of the work. And most of the buildings there have been built on a work trade basis, sometimes with a combination of some pay for the highly skilled construction workers, but part of it was to be able to stay there and use the property. He also developed a membership program to help keep funds coming in where people in exchange for being a member and paying, I think I don't remember, $50 a year or something like that, they have a little bit more access to the property or different kinds of access than people who are not part of the members. And that's kept his cash flow coming in during the winter time when they don't have guests and so forth. So I wanted to mention those as well. And that's all that's on my mind at the moment. Whatever else was there has left for now, but I'll when it comes back up, I'll share it with you somehow.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about strategic planning. Because we're in the process, the organization Culture of Empathy. I never but never made a nonprofit out of it because of all the paperwork and so forth. But now we need to create this nonprofit and are going through the process. And one of the processes is the strategic planning. So that could and so looking next to set up maybe a weekly volunteer group that would like to just kind of meet like this to begin with, start coming up with ideas, and then I could see, we're looking, yeah, like a work trade. I think I could see that as a possibility of people that want to live there and kind of contribute work. So in exchange. So that, yeah, great ideas.
Edwin, are there site plans available to look at? Or
In what at what level? We had an there's an architect who had mapped out what it was before, and then their changes that and how they renovated it. There's two wings. Well, there's two wings and then a chapel in the middle. And then one wing, there's a residence, what used to be for the priests, and that's been renovated. And there's, plans, the plans for that, the old and then the new. And then there's a kitchen, kind of really nice, industrial sized kitchen, and then a sort of two-part dining room, that pretty large rooms. And then what they used to be the sisters' residences where the nuns lived. So they had 8 nuns that lived there and kind of did the cooking, and that's been renovated. So there's plans, the floor layout was there, as well as there's some plans we did get one proposal for the renovation of the dormitories, and that's sort of, we have the floor layout, but then also trying to come up with designs for it, like, how to, separate rooms, or do we have dormitories or some rooms? So we're kind of like trying to figure that out. And that has to be within the context of the conditional use permit in terms of how many people we can have there. And then there's functions of parking spots in terms of the type of people are there. So there's a lot of sort of formulas in terms of how many people can be there and drive up and all that kind of stuff. So is that the plans you're talking about? The floor plans?
That and for the property alone with the elevations and stuff like that, and see, just to look at possibilities of gardening and terracing and stuff like that, because I know a lot of it's hilly. And
yeah, there's a link to Google Earth that has the 3-dimensional. It's on the tour, the website tour, that really gives you the contours of the space, because it is from the base to the top is 250 feet. So it's a bit of a climb. So it's on top of a hill, and then there you can see the contour lines and so forth. Like, yeah, if you want to contour it, like how that would be done. Oh, there's a company called Seventh Generation. I don't know if you ever heard of them. It's a group of guys that do like a site design, and they have a website. I was wondering if you maybe knew them. Well, the Seventh Generation.
I don't know, but I'm jotting that down. So.
Yeah, and they do like an analysis. They're sort of into permaculture, and I don't have it right handy, but they're north of Santa Barbara. I can't remember the town, but they've done sort of site analysis where they go in and they map out the whole site in terms of the water flow, all the different sort of environmental issues, and they'll also create a plan to, for how you can sort of create maybe a permaculture type environment or so forth.
Nice.
Edwin, when I was I was also thinking about ways to generate income immediately in a space like this, that would also help with, the operations, covering the operation expenses. And one of the things that I thought this place would be really interesting for is weddings.
Oh yeah.
Because of the space, you have a space to hold the wedding, you have a space for the after party or entertainment. There's plenty of parking spaces. It's a safe, contained space. So, that's something that, and then there, could be a spiritual dimension to, holding weddings in a space like this, but it's something that could generate income throughout the year. And so that was one of the ideas that came to mind for me was
yeah. My brother had thought of that right off because there's a big chapel for, I think, about 200 people. It's in pretty good shape. The thing is the aesthetics of the space it's very institutional. It's like, I personally wouldn't want to get married there. It's
Well,
like, but it could be fixed up, and yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
the Catholics wouldn't mind. My dad's a deacon in a Roman Catholic church, so they love institutionalized ways.
And then I also took that in consideration. I did the tour. And so, again, if you focus on possibilities, there are people that get married in spaces that are far less attractive to that, but they're able to transform them by the people they bring in to transform the space. So that's something that, that wouldn't be your responsibility, would be responsibility of the people who were hosting that to bring in their people. So, and
Yeah.
again, I've seen weddings in far less attractive spaces than this. So
Yeah, it's a beautiful view up there. And there was some old photographs that my brother found on a hard drive there. And it was when the place was in use, and they had a lot of flowers, and it looked, just some landscaping. Like right now, everything sort of died back because it hasn't been used for 6-7 years at least. I think there was some AA meetings or something there periodically, and that's about the only use it's had. So all the vegetation has died back, and so it looks sort of Spartan. But from those photographs, with some good landscaping, it would really help kind of make it look alive and more beautiful. But yeah, that's what my brother was talking about, the weddings. He was really much into that as a possible income.
and then another thing is, as a space, like having worked for a municipality, we often rented this city that I worked for. They would go into nonprofit spaces to hold department retreats, leadership development retreats, a variety of different things. And so there's a tremendous opportunity there, with all the cities that surround your area and stuff, for those types of programs to help sustain your property.
Yeah, yeah, that's could be used there's right now we're cleaning out the old furniture. There's like tons of old mattresses and old furniture, so we've been starting to sort that. But there is a space, a couple of pretty big rooms that are pretty usable for groups like that to meet already. So we do have 14 rooms. Once they're furnished, we can just start iteratively, starting with small projects like that, small events. And maybe for that work exchange too, if there's people who have skills or interested in that, because there's quite a bit to do there. Okay, well, if there's nothing else. Kathleen, looks like you're almost about to say something.
One last thought in terms of the work exchange program, and I mentioned Michael Lightweaver. If you're interested in hearing how he did his, or how he did any of his stuff with the Mountain Light Sanctuary, I'm happy to put you in touch with him. And I think he's going to be really jazzed when I tell him about what you're doing. I think it's going to be something he'll be very enthusiastic about and happy to support with his own experience, if that's of use to you.
Very much so. I really appreciate that, because that's one of the things we've been trying to do is connect with other retreat centers to get a sense of, what's happening in that sort of industry. The first thing I did, I had lived a year at Esalen, so I reached out to David Price, whose father was one of the co-founders, and he had also been for 10 years the director there. So we kind of got his kind of ideas about it. And then we talked to Mount Madonna. I don't know if you know them, but they're in the mountains of Santa Cruz. And so any retreat centers, we'd love to talk to, appreciate that connection, to talk with them, just to hear their thoughts would be excellent.
I absolutely will send that to you. And Mountain Light Sanctuary is on the opposite extreme in terms of rusticness. It's a very rustic retreat center, but very beautiful and a very holistic approach. And so I'll put the two of you in touch. I'll send an email to him introducing the two of you, and then you all can take it from there. And I'll send you the link to the sanctuary.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so these circles, we have them on Mondays. We've been every 2 Mondays, and if you attend that one, my brother attends those, and those were sort of more for the Santa Cruz, community. And so, you could meet with the Santa Cruz, but you're all welcome to attend those too. And then we have these on Fridays, which are more for just anyone, Santa Barbara, sorry, said Santa Cruz, from Santa Barbara, workshop leaders. It's for the whole empathy community, so anyone can come to these. We may be starting them on Saturday and turn this into a volunteer circle. So if you're interested in being a volunteer to begin with, we can kind of meet on a regular basis and maybe come up with projects people might want to work on, in person there or kind of remotely, because we want to develop a whole curriculum of empathy, projects too. So yeah, to be continued then. So maybe we just get a final ending comments. Bill, do you want any final comments before we close?
Sure, I appreciate listening to everyone here and meeting new people, and and I share the excitement that people have, and looking forward to collaborating with people. Thanks.
Thanks. And Dwayne?
I enjoyed the experience of meeting and sharing the space with you all today. And I would like to conclude by saying, does anybody know Oprah? Because
that's a big question for me too.
Yeah, for me, connecting with Oprah is, this is her community and this is her area. This is something she might be interested in. So somebody, Oprah, please get in touch with Edwin. And then next, probably Deepak Chopra.
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. Yeah, I'm there with you. Dennis?
Well, I am, with your permission, I will get in touch with the most recent director of La Casa de Maria, a retired Presbyterian minister named Steve Jacobson, whom I have known for, 25 years, and ask him to get in touch with you, just because I want to develop this theme of allies, local allies to cooperate with the renewal, not just letting that beautiful place collapse or be bulldozed and turned into mansions, but to be a resource, something life-giving for the community.
Yeah,
So,
thanks. Oh, was there more?
Oh, just I wanted your permission to do that.
Oh, definitely. Reach
Yeah.
out to any local organizations. Also invite them to the empathy circle too, because I appreciate you bringing Will and Melissa to this, because this is sort of a meet and greet space. People can bring up any ideas, and we're also—
I don't know anyone more radiant than Will and Melissa, so I have brought you the best
the cream of the
connection
crop
that I know of first.
Well, speaking of which, Will.
Thank you, Dennis. Melissa has a lot of good connections, and she's been excited about possibilities in this, and it for me, exciting to see all you here, and yeah, that the art of creation and just creating and feeling alive in it all. So I just want to appreciate each and every one of you. And like I said, the invite, we have a 4-bedroom house that can fit some people in it when visiting.
Great, thanks for that invitation. And you'd also had signed up initially for Monday. Are you taking part in that again, or you're welcome to?
I may.
Okay, just if you clarify, because we have you on the list, I think, so I want to just be sure who is coming.
Yeah,
so-
by tonight I'll know if I'm gonna
Okay.
say one.
Cool. Kathleen?
Thank you, Edwin. I would like to say that I feel more inspired and engaged than I did coming in, and that rocks my world. And I am so grateful to have the opportunity to share this time with all of you, and I look forward very much to the next time. And I would also like to say, Edwin, just take this opportunity that I had signed up for tomorrow's Empathy Circle. And I just have the opportunity to take a trauma-informed facilitation training that overlaps with that. And I need to take that training to prepare for some work I'm doing. So I apologize. I will sign up to the next one, but I thought I'd retract my RSVP while we're here together now, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, it's drop in, so there's no, if people don't come, it's fine. We have a lot of people coming from all over. Like these groups here are by sort of reservation. We have a limited amount. On Saturday, those cafes are open, come or don't. So it's not no problem. It's not putting us out or anything. So, thanks. Well, thanks everyone for taking part. It's really delightful to connect with you all and kind of see how this can evolve and how we can develop an ongoing relationship and, collaborate on this. And so I'm looking forward to that continuing. And so we like to end with our jazz hands. It's good for the photograph to have our jazz hands on the screen. So see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks again.